It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the sports business owner of a YouTube channel called the Sports Dude Heinz Show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me and everything.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to start your own YouTube channel?
Well, honestly, I don't really talk much unless it's sports and everything. And, I'm a big Bengals fan. And I used to actually have a Cincinnati Bengals podcast and stuff, but that wasn't really much on YouTube. That was more so on like streaming platforms like Spotify and stuff like that. But I knew eventually I really wanted to have like a sports podcast where I didn't just talk about the Bengals. I talked about, all types of teams and sports and everything like that. And I thought having it on YouTube, so pretty much anybody can see it, I thought that'd be, a good idea, get my name out there and kind of, expand my brand and everything like that.
How did you come up with the name of your podcast, The Sports Heinz Show?
Well, it's kind of my username for lots of stuff, Sports Dude Heinz. My last name is Heinz. I love sports and everything. And it was either that or the Jordan Hines show. So I went with Sports Dude Hines because I thought it was something, different and original.
Of course, what do you cover on your YouTube channel?
I cover, different sports, mainly the NFL, college football, a little bit of the NBA, occasionally the MLB, but not much. And I cover a little bit of wrestling too, like the WWE and AEW.
Of course, with covering college sports, have you talked a lot about the new NIL law?
Not really. I normally have about one episode a week and stuff. And honestly, I would say 90% of my things I talk about are the NFL. I like college football, but I'm just not into it like I am the NFL. That's the main topics and the main storylines, basically, of my channel.
Of course, with being a NFL podcast, basically, what are some of the topics that you talk about when it comes to the NFL?
Just whatever the top storylines are and everything. If there should be moves or what should happen. With different situations and stuff like that. What teams will be good this year, predictions, and just basically just a little bit of everything.
Who are some of the people that you have interviewed?
I've had a chance to interview Carl Mecklenburg. He used to play for the Denver Broncos. He was a Pro Bowler multiple times. Jason Campbell, he was a Auburn legend. He played for the Redskins. And when like I mentioned earlier, I kind of had that Bengals podcast, and when I had that, I actually got to interview quite a few draft prospects. Like Kyle Duggar, Alex Highsmith, some of those draft prospects from not this past season, but the year prior, and also Kenny Anderson, who actually won the NFL MVP back in the '80s for the Bengals. And just different people. Mainly football. I've not really done any basketball interviews, but mainly football and baseball players.
Of course, with being you also having basketball and baseball, have you branched out to other areas of sports like the NHL, the NWHL?
Yeah, no, because I don't know a single thing about hockey, and if I talk about it on my show, I don't want to embarrass myself while talking about it. So yeah, I mainly stick to football the most. I know some about basketball and baseball, but I mainly stick to football the most because I know the most about it. And yeah, so football, baseball, basketball, and wrestling are really the only four sports that are pretty much talked about on my show and stuff.
How do you go about getting some of the people that you've had on your show?
Well, I kind of DM them on Instagram and stuff. But if they don't have Instagram, I'll try Twitter. But more likely you have a higher chance to get a response on Instagram and stuff. Also sometimes players have like emails that you can like message them about maybe do an interview and stuff like that. But emailing them and DMing them on Instagram to me are the ways I've been able to get interviews, and they kind of work pretty well and stuff.
What are the different segments that you have on the Hennessy show?
I don't really have a lot of segments. My friend and I, we've kind of started kind of a segment series recently. It's called 30-Minute Drill. We'll talk a little bit of sports, but we'll also kind of make stuff up as we go. Just basically a normal conversation, like we would talk on the phone. We make stuff up. We talk a little about sports. It's entertaining. Our last episode, we were talking about how my years ago we went to Orlando Magic game, and my dad basically was like the halftime show at the Orlando Magic game and stuff, and it's really cool, and it's definitely a lot more entertaining than my normal podcast.
Can you talk more about the segment, the 30-minute show, and what that is?
Yeah, so 30-minute drill. Basically, we have 30 minutes to talk about whatever we want for the most part, sports or not sports. We can have random stories. I mean, like I mentioned, we were talking about my dad being on the halftime show at the Magic game. And then, I mean, we're talking about favorite movies, but then we're talking about what players are going to have, surprising years this year, in the NFL and stuff. I kind of like it because we really don't have scripts. We don't really have anything set in stone that we 100% are going to talk about. We just make stuff up as we go. And that's the thing I like about it. Compared to kind of like my podcast, is like when you have a podcast, you already know what you want to talk about. With this, you don't really know. You're making stuff on the fly type of deal.
What is something that you learned now that you didn't know before starting a YouTube channel?
When I was getting into it, I thought it'd be kind of easy. And, because honestly, when I started YouTube, I did not know much about it. But, each day when I do episodes more and more, I'm getting more knowledgeable about doing stuff and different things like that. And it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be at first. Last year, like I mentioned, I had different people, on my show. And at first, I did not have episodes much compared to what I do right now. But, it's a lot harder than you think. You would think, getting subscribers would be kind of easy, but, compared to like, Instagram, it's kind of easy at times, and Twitter is too. But, it's really difficult to kind of, grow in your channel. That's something I've learned, that it's a lot harder than you think it would be.
Of course, what are some of your future plans with your YouTube channel?
I have just a ton of plans, but lots of them are just kind of like ideas. Once football season gets started and everything, I plan on possibly having 3 live episodes a week, but that's kind of up in the air right now due to different things. I really want to branch out more, and I really like to have like live guests join the show and stuff. I would really like to have kind of a similar show as you've seen, the Pat McAfee show. That's one of the only sports shows I actually watch. Something similar to that, and I would love to be kind of like the look, because around here it's not really a huge city or anything. It's in Huntington, West Virginia. I would love to be like the Pat McAfee, of around here. Really, expand my podcast, get more well known and everything, and branch out and just have different things. I have lots of ideas, but some of them work, some of them don't work. But I'm really interested to see progress in the future of this podcast and everything.
Of course, who are some of the YouTube channels or in podcasts that you look up to, and how do you implement your podcast versus theirs?
There's only really 3 podcasts I watched before I started this, and there's only those 3 podcasts, the only ones I really watch trying to help myself. Chris Van Vliet, he's an interviewer. He did stuff for, I believe, Entertainment News, and he also did stuff. He interviews different wrestlers. He actually, followed me on Twitter months back. I thought that was really, really cool. Somebody who I kind of, took stuff after, trying to kind of learn stuff after. When I started this podcast, ended up following me on Twitter. I thought that was, awesome and stuff. And then the other 2, I already mentioned Pat McAfee. I like him because, he's just really entertaining. He doesn't really care what people think, type of deal. He makes stuff up as he goes. And another one is Rich Eisen. I mean, Rich Eisen, to me, he's on everything. It seems like he's really well respected, around, sports and everything. Chris Van Vliet, Rich Eisen, and Pat McAfee are the three people to me, I've really kind of, looked after and try to, compare and try to do stuff after my podcast.
Of course, as your podcast grows, do you see yourself doing more interviews with professional athletes?
Yeah, I've not done many interviews this year, not nearly as many as I wanted to. The only interviews I've done, this year, like I mentioned, Carl Mecklenburg, and the other one was boxer Brian Maxwell. He was actually Chad Ochocinco's opponent in that boxing match. But the next couple of days, I have a couple scheduled. Akili Smith, who used to play for the Bengals, and also Jimmy Smith, who used to play for the Jaguars, who to me is easily one of the most underrated wide receivers of all time. Those are plans in the next couple of days, so hopefully, they pull through and it works out and everything.
Of course, what advice would you have somebody looking to start their own sports talk podcast on YouTube?
Don't really start something if you don't know what you're doing. Completely know what you're doing. Already have lots of posts before you even start a channel. Because if you start a channel and you're going to post like one video a week or something like that, not many people are going to watch. Make sure to have tons of content before you even start your channel. Know what you're doing before you even start your page and everything. I think it's really smart to to have relationships with people. To have different people come on your show, or they come on your show, and different stuff like that, because it can really help you grow your product and everything. But really make sure you know what you're doing and realize what you're getting into, because it's kind of a lot harder than what people think.
Where can my listeners find your podcast at on social media?
The Sports Do Heinz Show on Instagram and Twitter. And, I also have the YouTube channel, The Sports Do Heinz Show. My content's also on Spotify and other streaming platforms as well. So that's where you can find, all my, latest episodes, my clips, and just interviews and different things like that.
Thank you again, Jordan, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Sports Dudes Heinz Show.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Jordan, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.